Travis Wayne Goodsell. I just watched New Rules from Bill Maher's show last night about toxic masculinity's fraud, and he makes the question about how that all happened. What happened? Who caused this? How did it get caused? He does not seem to know the cause of this weirdness in our society. And he talks about toxic masculinity and how Zelensky now is, American women's heartthrob. And yet he's the epitome of the toxic masculine identity. And so he condemns our society for detoxifying men for being men. And now when men are detoxified, women don't want them. And he doesn't understand where this is all coming from. And those of you who are regulars on my channel for quite a while now, you know exactly the cause. And you understand why I was yelling at Bill Maher on the computer screen. The cause of all of this. The field of psychology. I have gone over it in very graphic, specific detail. I have warned of the dangers to you and to our society and to our government of psychology. Explaining step by step by step how they brainwash people. They groom to brainwash. They are the cause of all this confusion. And I'll again reiterate past videos for you in a different presentation. In the 80s, I was a heavy TV watcher. When we were living in Placentia, California, my mom came home from Relief Society, where it was a joint activity with the Melchizedek priesthood husbands. And they came bursting through the front doors with a count chart thing. And I was supposed to be timed, all of us kids, but I was the big TV watcher. So it was focused on me. They were telling me that I am now going to regulate my TV watching. Hell no. It failed that very night. And my parents realized we're going to need more than one TV. And I've told you about how it began for me. When Todd was born, he had colic. And so Mom had to give him constant attention. And so, what does she do with me? Babysitters are expensive. My dad's going to school. They're newly married. They're in Berkeley. As we were living in Oxnard in an apartment there. And so, Sesame Street came out that year. And there were some others, Electric Company, and Captain Kangaroo, and Mr. Rogers. All of them were out. And so, yeah, my mom chose to have me educated, given attention by the TV. She herself designated that I was to utilize the TV for my education and development. And so when we eventually moved to Placentia, California, and they come home from the Special Relief Society combined activity, because they were held during the week still. They weren't on Sundays or whenever they got changed to. My mom had completely forgot that she was the cause of my excessive TV watching. And so you'll notice in my videos, still to this day, I'll have, in the descriptions below, I'll have songs. And occasionally a clip from a movie scene or a TV scene. The thumbnails will often incorporate movies or TV shows where applicable. Those typically fail, as I've found out that other people aren't familiar as much with the stuff I'm familiar with. But I often refer to clips and quotes from movies and TV shows in my movies, or in my videos, and songs and such. And so you can see the consequences of my education that my mom designated for me. And as you can see from my videos, I'm kind of, sort of, maybe smart. Kind of, just a little bit. And so, while watching commercials, when we moved to Corona, California, I would pay attention to the commercials because we're forced to watch them, and some of them were entertaining. Silly rabbit, tricks are for prostitutes. And others were trying to get you to buy their products online. I remember a lifetime guaranteed light bulb back then. And then a few months later, oh, it's now a 10-year light bulb guarantee. So I pay attention to those things. I remember. And I remember the changes. And I remember one commercial. It was somewhat of a public service announcement. You know, if you recognize these behaviors in your child, he may be depressed. Well, I was psychologists. They were trying to scare parents into suicidal tendencies institutionalized. I believe that's the name of it. Yeah, institutionalized. See? Because in that song, he's talking about how his parents come into his room. He's not doing anything wrong. He's just vegging out. And they say, we think it is in your best interest that you get the help you need. That's the psychological grooming. the box categorization, the dichotomous and non-dichotomous categorization system developed by the Mormon Stanley Smith Stevens. And then a few months after that commercial, because you got to understand, during the 80s, the church and others in the world, in the nation and in the world, because Stanley Kubrick did the British version of the conversion therapy. Everybody was doing conversion therapy. Well, that was psychology. Because back then, thinking that you're a different identity meant you're mentally ill. China still believes that to this day. They really don't care about psychology. Psychology has to do what they tell them to do. And so it's still a mental illness in China. And these are all just grooming techniques to wear down society, to break society, to destroy society. They aren't doing you any good. They aren't doing anybody any good. They are predators who seek to destroy. They have been educated to groom, to destroy. And yes, there's a popular ex-Mormon who is a psychologist who loves to groom Mormons who go through faith crises. And I've warned you about him. I've warned you about his co-worker and the thumbnail that exposed what's really going on between the two of them. And so, sure enough, Bill Maher says there's now 71 different gender identities. And so I go looking online, and what do I find? Stanley Smith Stevens, the Mormon categorization system. It's now called the gender spectrum. That's non-dichotomous, in case you were wondering. Dichotomous is just two options. Non-dichotomous is spectrum of options. So in government, we have been groomed by psychologists to either be the dichotomous categories of liberal or conservative. And they have different parties, and they've switched since World War II. Yeah, Lincoln's Republicans are not the Republicans of today. And in fact, since 2016, the Republicans are not the Republicans pre-2016. That's because of spectrum categorization, or the dichotomous changing of names, with just the main two ones. And so when you hear the news talk about left, which is now progressive, middle or right for liberal or conservative, and MAGA is the alt-right of the Republican dichotomous category. Those are spectrum categorizations, non-dichotomous categorizations. These are what's called box categories. Psychologists specifically do this to the public to force us into what they want us to be, do, say, and believe. And so everything is then judged by the category that we create, that was given to us by psychologists. This whole thing is a fraud, guys. It was purposely designed for destruction. And it's working. And so there's also a little bubble thing for each of the categories and how they can overlap to create other categories. It's the same kind of system. So you have male, masculine, agender, well, I guess the main ones are male, agender, female, and gender fluid. And then when you mix them, you got all these other different kinds. And in the middle, a person is uncertain and or all. All of this is a psychological manipulation called brainwashing. If you fall into this, if you go around being educated by it in the colleges and the universities, getting PhDs in this, you have been groomed by your university. You have been groomed by your professors. And now you're going into the profession grooming the public. Because those commercials changed as psychologists were seeking for more clients. But it was getting dangerous because those same exact characteristics, because remember, I remember, we're no longer about depression. Now you are gay. And then, another 3 months later, now you're a terrorist with the exact same symptoms. You do not go to your medical doctor to sit on a couch and express your feelings and then have the doctor prescribe drugs. That doesn't fix your problem. You saw Bill Maher's new rule. Women do want their problems fixed. I have known this. But women get brainwashed by psychologists in books such as Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It may be reversed, I don't care. They tell you who you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to believe, how you're supposed to think, how you're supposed to feel, and how you're supposed to interact with the other. You don't get to think for yourself with those kinds of books. You don't get to pursue the one you love with those kinds of books. Even music. Madonna. Material Girl. Because we are living in a material world, and I am a material girl. Boys who save their pennies make my rainy day. So you might fall in love with a guy. Oh, he's living with his parents because of financial difficulties. He went into humanities or psychology rather than becoming a doctor or a lawyer or some corporate business that he can make lots and lots of money to provide you with a nice lifestyle. All of that is by psychologists brainwashing you to select a mate based on what they want you to pursue, not what you want. The economy purposely prevents a just system. Our government purposely prevents businesses from being a just system. Our whole lives are run by psychologists, and it is destroying us. And so here's the twist. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You knew this was coming, right? Likewise, utilize these psychological brainwashing techniques to manipulate Mormons. This is what I've been warning. I don't know how long ago, but Mormon Leaks released a presentation given by a member of the 70 to the Quorum of Apostles during their weekly meeting. And the topic was issues and ideas leading people away from the gospel. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. See, that's the trick. Psychologists purposely alter definitions. They create new definitions, all to deceive and manipulate. See, because ex-Mormons are not leaving the gospel. Many of them still go and become Christian. So they haven't left the gospel if they're becoming Christian. This is the denial that goes on within the church that they present to Mormons. Oh, if you leave the church, you're leaving the gospel. You're abandoning Jesus. Jesus is crying tears. You know, if he can get angry if you call the church the LDS church or Mormon church. Oh my God, that just triggered a memory. I got a comment the other day by a woman who was upset with the video. We gotta look up the title here. I see some of you are starting to wake up. I did the video late last night. LDS Church overthrowing world governments. Let's see. Not that one. Not that one. Yeah. LDS Church takes credit for donations by Mormons. I'm hopeful that all of you know that it's the same organization, regardless of whether I use LDS Church or Mormons. And I purposely use LDS Church or Mormons, not just because it's too long to put the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints takes credit for donations by members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I have 150 characters that YouTube allows. This person, and I'm confused, she can't be Mormon, but is she? Because if she is, she's completely forgotten that Nelson said we can't use nicknames because Jesus is angry. But she said they're one and the same, and that I'm the dumbass. As if Mormons were donating to the LDS Church and they're separate people. Oh my God. She has been brainwashed. She is changing definitions. She's purposely not listening to the prophet. And she called me a liar even. Stop lying. I mean, dear God, talk about your toxicity. She was accusing me of it, but she herself was guilty of far worse. That is psychology. That is what Bill Maher does not know the cause of. Psychology. And so, notice at the bottom, the member of the 70 put far left and far right. Oh, the church is political now. That's the dichotomous categorization. The dichotomous. You're either far left or you're far right. But then he has the non-dichotomous categorization system with bubble category groups. Ordained women are on the left, disagree with current policies. Incredulity over church history. Let's look up that word. The state of being unwilling or unable to believe something. Oh my God. I'm sure all of you are aware of the gospel topic essays. The church confesses to lying to us about church history. And yet, and plus the one I've been pushing lately, we're not Christian. Yeah, we're the learning of the Jews. It's right there in the Book of Mormon, right at the beginning, for all of us to read. And yet the brainwashing they've done to us, we skip right over it. We glaze right over it. We don't catch on to what that means. I'm guilty myself. I was born and raised Mormon. I was taught in all of the different places to be taught in the church that we're Christian. Jesus is our Christ. And I'm demonstrating incredulity over church history in my videos. As Mormons are upset with me that I'm not making the connection that Mormons and LDS Church are one and the same. And secular, if you're worldly, material girl. You're on the left. And you'll notice on the chart that I'll put at the beginning, there's the Barbie doll on the left for the ultra feminine, and then G.I. Joe on the ultra right. And they were trying to tell me back then that I should play with G.I. Joes rather than Barbie dolls. But I want to play with Barbie dolls. I'm not allowed to play with G.I. Joes? I have to like masculine colors? What? Since when do colors have a sexual identity? That was the whole problem during the 80s, is that psychologists were going berserk. Everything meant you were gay. Before they then said, oh, well, those symptoms now mean you're a terrorist. First you were depressed, then you're gay, now you're a terrorist. Do you see the abuse that psychologists do to people? They are name callers. They are bullies. When they create a category box and a spectrum of category boxes. They want you destroyed and controlled. It's just horrifying. And here, the prophets of the church are being instructed on this process to control Mormonisms. How do we get Mormons back to church? How do we keep them from leaving? Start telling the truth about church history. Start mentioning what you found in the Joseph Smith papers, rather than keeping it a sacred secret and having people pay to purchase the books and then go through the thousands of pages to find what you should be telling the church in advance. Hey, guess what, guys? We're not the true church. Brigham Young had Joseph Smith murdered. 19 July 1840. We're sorry. We didn't know. We're now coming clean with you. We're closing the church. We're giving all of our trillions to legitimate charities. Good luck with your future. Sorry we screwed you. Nope. They gotta perpetuate the lie. And so on the far right, we'll come to the middle of the road spectrums. You have false prophets. But I thought only the church had the only prophets. Catholics don't have a prophet. They have a pope. He's not a prophet. What do you mean? False prophets. Oh, Denver Snuffer. Okay. I see what you're talking about. Some guy named Robert Norman. Yeah, a Norman, I guess. Whoever he is. Is he the guy up in Idaho? I don't know. Let's Google search him. I noticed I don't have Brian David Mitchell on the chart. He was a prophet. Warren Jeffs, he was a prophet. Robert Norman? Yeah, Norman. Obituary. Photography. 16th century English mariner, compass builder, and hydrographer who discovered magnetic inclination. I don't think that's him. So, oh, there's LDS. He's been at the pulpit of conference. BYU Education Week. Robert J. Norman. What happened? Who are you? I don't remember seeing you on the list of September 6th. This was 2010. And then 1997, he was also in Education Week. Prophet Joseph Smith. I'm not going to let me know. There's, the psychologists. We're talking about the chart. Isn't that interesting? The psychologist grooming Mormons out of Mormonism is going over the same chart that I'm going over with you. That came from the Mormon leaks. 17 Threats to the True Church from Mormon Dialogue in 2017, Robert Norman. Former 30-plus year CES instructor. Does this have to do with... No, it can't be. I was thinking Jeremy Reynolds. But he believes he's seen Christ and Noah. And again, I have to remind you, we're not Christian. Christianity's First Creed by Constantine, the Nicene Council in 325, the personage himself, who supposedly talking to Joseph Smith as, well, that's the Grove one. The Moroni, who was actually Nephi, is in the bedroom with the other brothers in the same room, and somehow they don't wake to know about it as he's talking to Joseph Smith. But yeah, we're learning of the Jews, guys. Learning of the Jews. And the language of the Egyptians. Everything in the scriptures comes from the Egyptian documents. And so, yeah, the guy obviously is a nutcase. But to consider him far right, just ordained women are more aggressive than somebody who says he's seen Jesus. But you can see, if you change your understanding of the categories, you know, he's thinking of women as a liberal-minded person, even though ordained women are on the extreme right, because they're missing information. 17 March 1842. Look it up. I did the video. Why don't you refer to it? Use the truth about church history, not your personal feelings about church history and what it should be. And so, needing something more, yeah, I see that in Mormonism. And yes, in connection with last days, end of the world predictions. Notice they say predictions, not prophecies. Because Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow, they needed something more from the prophets. Because they knew that the tetrad of 2014-2015 with the deaths of 3 apostles had to do with the latter days. Monson came out with a statement saying, nope, nothing to see here, move along. And so Mormons needed more. Chad and Lori Daybell decided to go on a murderous streak, even of children, because they needed more and believed that the prophet was wrong. And so they knew better. So they became murderers. But even at a smaller degree, the prophets will not answer church history questions. And so it's not that Mormons don't believe. It's because we have questions. How was Joseph Smith able to see the face of God and live? He hadn't been baptized. He didn't receive the Holy Ghost. He didn't go through the temple. What's going on? We need answers. The prophets won't give them to us. And they insult us. In their private meetings, they insult us also. This is how they think about us. That we're either creating our own doctrine because the church is negligent on telling us the doctrine, or they think we're trying to destroy them because we don't believe them and their lies. And so the church has lost its way or is deficient. That's the need something else. But you see how their categorization isn't making the connection that I just made for you. The incredulity over church history is the cause of the church has lost its way or is deficient, needs something more, and last days, end of the world predictions. You can't have these groups. You've got to destroy them. It belongs in science, where you have different kinds of plants, and you need to categorize them as to whether they're fruits or vegetables. So the tomato used to be a vegetable, now it's a fruit, through scientific categorization. You cannot transfer that process to human behavior, because now what you're doing is trying to brainwash people to get them to conform and to comply to a person's will. We're not even following the Constitution, where we're supposed to guarantee life, liberty, and property to all humans under this nation. And so, yes, Bill Maher does not understand psychology has destroyed everything in our society. So in the middle of the spectrum, between the far left and the far right, porn, idol worship, the belief that there is such a thing as pornography. It didn't even exist during the Greek period. The two words come from the Greek. Porn is one word, graphy is another word, graphia technically. But it wasn't until the late 1800s when it first began to be used. And it first began to be used with words in books. Something that was disapproving. Had nothing to do with sexuality. And so until evangelicals lost in the Supreme Court in the 1900s, they then went on a idol worshiping kick. Evangelical Christians. They were denied creationism in the schools. I would hate to see, well, we need our school systems to teach real science, because even the theory of evolution is wrong. It's already been disproven as a theory. It needs to be thrown away and not taught in our school system. Not even the evolutionary theory. Because remember, they did the categorization based on the theory of evolution. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. See, we are humans, which means we're of the family humanoids. It's Homo sapien, I think, but regardless. But they're trying to tell us that our order is shared with chimpanzees. And so as our species, that's all of the different ethnic groups, nationalities, colors. And then there are subspecies categorizations. There's the abuse. There's the racism. Science isn't being neutral. They created the racism categorized system with the theory of evolution. Because before the theory of evolution, let's Google search when it came out. Racine, London, 1910, for the paleontology something of vertebrates. And so, yeah, Darwin was right there. Let's see. The modern understanding of evolution began with 1859 publication of Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species. There's species: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. This is where scientists who believe in the theory of evolution mock and make fun and tease Christians who believe in creationism. Not because of creationism, but by their ignorance of the theory of evolution. Because Noah took onto the ark 2 or 7 pairs of animals. That has to do with the falsified documentary hypothesis, but we're not going over that. But which ranking, according to the theory of evolutionary categorization boxes, were those animals? Were they species, as scientists tease Christians about? Oh, there's no way they can get every single species of animal on that ark, according to the measurements. Or is it genus? Or is it family? Yeah. Before this time, there was David Hume. He wrote the book Dialogues Concerning Natural Religion in 1779. In that book, he has dialogues between fictional characters discussing natural religion, in which it is brought out about the theory of vegetation, or vegetation theory. That is established law. You have a seed, you plant it, you grow it, produce the fruits, no mutations. You don't take an orange seed, plant it, grow it, and produce potatoes. There is no mutation to get from an orange to a potato. And so why the hell do we then think, oh, well, there's a mutation that will either branch us off into chimpanzees or into humans? It's a very simplistic theory, and Occam's razor says we're supposed to choose it. All things being equal, the easiest answer is the more likely one. But yeah, Darwin screwed everything up because he didn't do things properly. You can read the book for yourself. I'm sure there's a PDF version of it that you can read or at least download. PDF. So VLIZ.BE. Well, sure enough, 247 pages. You can download it. And you can read it for yourself. That was part of my curriculum that I chose. I went into philosophy of science, so I know all about the fraud of this. And so when I saw X-Files, that's hilarious. In the opening pilot episode, Fox Mulder talks about how he knows about Dana Scully's work and her thesis on rewriting Einstein. That was awesome. Good for her. She's right. Einstein was an idiot. Everybody should have known by his hair. Nonetheless. I'm sure there's probably some kind of disability he has that prevents him from being able to comb his hair. I saw that in the news the other day. A kid purposely cannot do anything with his hair. So, alright, maybe Einstein had that too. I've never heard of it. But, so the Sabbath is leading Mormons away from the gospel. Yep, Sabbath. What do you mean Sabbath? Do you mean violators of the Sabbath? Dear God. And chastity? Yeah. Well, Brigham Young said that the higher law is polygamy, so we have to be obedient. I need someone more. A lack of righteousness. A lack of commitment. Ooh. On my New York mission, I had zone leaders and district leaders all pressuring me to make a covenant oath for a number of baptisms for a week. You know, we had to report our numbers, and I was being told, can you make a promise, an oath, that you will get so many hours of tracting, so many of this, so many baptisms? No. I can't tell what other people are going to choose. It's just ridiculous, but it was being used back then. That concept of that I have to program myself to program others as to what they are to believe, what they are to do, what they are to say, and then treat them accordingly. You know, if they refuse to read the Book of Mormon, you don't name call them, but if you've placed them in a category box of evil and apostate, if they don't read the Book of Mormon, you know, like it's some kind of choose your own adventure series, you come across an investigator and give him the golden question, have you read the Book of Mormon? They say no. They say, I've got a copy of the Book of Mormon right here. Will you read the Book of Mormon? Then you have options. They say no. They say maybe. They say, I'm not paying for it. They say yes. And so if you choose that they said, hell no, then you read on in the story that they then start a fight. You are hospitalized and have to be sent home from your mission early for your injuries. But do you see how this right here is toxic Mormonism? And you can see I already know the cause, but Mr. Groomer, I'm willing to bet, because I'm never going to watch it, I already know what he's doing to people. He doesn't talk about it. And so, yes, in Mormonism, there is spectrums of Mormons. From the far-right apostates to the Molly Jack Mormons, or I guess it's not Jack Mormon, Peter Priesthoods on the left. Dear God. I kind of wonder if Molly Mormons and Peter Priesthoods would actually be on the far right, though. But you see how I just did that as the example of what they do. It's just all absurd. You've got your Mormons who only believe that what Joseph Smith taught until he was assassinated. You have those who believe that what was published by Joseph Smith after he was assassinated. You have those that believe Brigham Young's claims about Joseph Smith. You have those who follow Brigham Young only. And then Elder Benson, when he came out with the following of the... I don't remember how many ways, fundamentals of a living prophet or something like that. That also was an attempt to brainwash Mormons. 14 fundamentals and following the prophet. Or, yeah, 14. Yeah. That's all brainwashing. They're telling you that you have to stick to his 14. That you can't go above and beyond, you can't replace, you can't redefine. Those are the 14 fundamentals. And don't you dare question that they contradict each other. And so yes, the 7 habits of highly effective people, even though seek first to understand before being understood, is good and true, as I went over with you in a video not too long ago. The whole premise of 7 habits of highly effective people, all crap. And it was taught on my mission too. I was forced to read it. And the church, working for the church, and the distribution center, they gave us Who Moved My Cheese by a psychologist who tortured little animals, rodents, mice, whatever, but nonetheless, in that book, he insults humans by referring to them as mice. And that the corporations are the humans performing the human experimentation on their employees who are mice. And that the mice are put into a maze and they have to find their way through the maze to get to the cheese. And then once they're programmed to find their way through the maze and get to the cheese, you then take it away from them. What is a basic essential need, the company leaders, the corporate officers, are told, hey, if you want to take away the paychecks of your employees, go ahead and do so. Give them this book and tell them they're mice, not men. It is a book that is degrading to human beings. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was pushing it on their employees while I was working there. So I put up a big stink, and Dick Ballard said, I don't want you going to the meeting. I said, good, I didn't want to go to the meeting. His actual name is Richard, but he said to call him Dick. So I made sure to call him Dick. So, in conclusion, I am not trying to hurt you. I am exposing those who are. I know the causation of your pain, of your suffering, of your confusion. I know the people responsible. And it's sad that by being brainwashed, you do not recognize that I'm trying to help you, and that you are brainwashed by them to hurt me for wanting to help you. This is the danger part. That if I don't conform to what you've been controlled to believe, to think, to feel, to act, to say, that I'm therefore the enemy. The church is your enemy. Psychologists are your enemy. Anybody brainwashed by them are accessories to the enemy. They need to be rescued. If they are knowingly doing what they're doing, then they are the enemy. But otherwise, if they're naive and don't realize it, like Bill Maher doesn't recognize it, but he knows it's wrong, you need to be rescued. So I guess I gotta get a Bill Maher picture to put the other picture in it.